We understand what the platform wants. We understand what people want.
What Jimmy just said there is why he's a billionaire. This is the same phrase that Steve Jobs would use. Today, I'll be reacting to several clips of Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson, and breaking down how he is as a communicator. I run the communications company Nouts, where we help entrepreneurs and leaders and creators speak with clarity, with comfort, and with calmness. And let's see where Mr. Beast stands compared to some of the most influential speakers on the internet today.
You know, if I do this, then hopefully this video makes $15,000 and then I'll give away $15,000.
Right.
And then hopefully that video makes $20,000 and I'll give away 20.
One of the things that I notice about Jimmy is that he has a lot of that Gen Z eagerness in the way that he talks. We would call him a firehose genius. If you imagine a fire hose, there's a flow of water, information that's coming out of Jimmy's brain, and it is a large, forceful torrent of water. It's very powerful, it's very unordered, and it's usually at full power. And this gives his speech a lot of authenticity, but it also makes it incredibly hard to quote him. He rarely lands a complete sentence. He has very high passion, very low gravity with his voice. It's this very much, I'm kind of learning all this. It's this anxious Gen Z humility. It's not intimidating, but it's very approachable if that's what you're going for. And that's what we notice with Mr. Beast. He's very approachable when he speaks. If he really learned how to end his sentences with gravity and have gravity in his voice, which is something that anyone can have, his ideas would have a lot more power and impact.
The answer is you just film everything, you know, and but it's brutal, and most people can't do that. When I try to think of like one of the most, can't think of another word than OP. It means overpowered if you're not a gamer. Sometimes I say that and people like look at me weird.
I love this. This is so cool. One of the qualities of Jimmy that's so remarkable is how he's still very much a kid who never outgrew wonder. And we see this in his vocabulary. His vocabulary contains a lot of words that have wonder and playfulness. Words like brutal. Oh, it was so brutal. This was impossible. Destroyed. Weirdly obsessed. Crazy. Insane. Cool. This is his verbal brand. A verbal brand is a collection of words that gives insight into how a person processes the world. And Jimmy's verbal brand is made up of language that is very much reminiscent of the early 2000s gaming world. And he still uses that language to describe things that are very emotional or professional and profound today. And that's that child in him that hasn't grown up and taken on the adult language of the world around him. He's very much preserved that part of who he is, and I think it's an incredible advantage.
The only bottleneck was sleep. Like if it wasn't for sleep, we would probably talk for 1,000 hours straight, you know what I mean? And we did that every single day for 1,000 days in a row. You know, we didn't drink, we didn't do drugs.
One thing that I think could be improved when I listen to him is if Jimmy could add stillness to his sentences, what he would say would have 10 times more power. There's a principle that we talk about in Elite Speak, our program, where we say authority is oxygen. Breathing is what creates authority. And in Mr. Beast's case, he has a lot of natural authority that comes from his obsession of making videos, and that comes across in his kind of neurotic, like erratic way of speaking, and that can work, but there's a deeper kind of authority that comes from when someone slows down and they know how to let their ideas sit.
If you have a younger viewer who's in that same spot, you're not the problem, it's your environment, and you just gotta put yourself in a better environment.
What about your parents?
I find this clip really interesting. I noticed this a lot about Jimmy when I was producing a 3.5-hour documentary on him several years ago. Jimmy has this tendency of leaning forward when he would finish a thought or end a sentence. It's like this subconscious signal of like, okay, next. It reveals a little bit of restlessness, almost like he's addicted to progress, even in his communication, in his conversation. And that's a very admirable quality because that progress, that constant edge of what's next is what has built his entire empire. But in his speaking, it gives him a very ungrounded quality. I see this a lot in high-performing people. Every sentence needs to feel like a bridge to another idea. It's very hard to sit still. There always has to be a destination. And I get that sense in Jimmy's body language. Another pattern in his speaking that I've picked up over the years is that Jimmy very much thinks in loops. He doesn't think in lines. He's not a linear thinker. If I were to illustrate this on a whiteboard, is this. His thoughts will often circle back. He might come back to the same sentence. He'll take the same idea and talk about it later, and he'll be all over the place. It's very fractured in his thinking. And you can see this in his eyes as well. When he's challenged with a concept to create or a memory to recall, he'll look at the top right or the top left. And this is very common in someone who's going into their visual recall or any creative part of their brain, is they will look up to the right. Well, let me think about that. Jimmy come up with an idea involving $1 million and a dog. Well, let me think about that. It's this active demonstration of his thinking, and the fact that he's comfortable on camera with that, and he is okay very much being that mad idea scientist on the spot, even when his body language isn't perfect, is a tremendous testament to where he does continue to put his focus, which is not on communication, it's on creation and everything that he's working on. But this still does show a very raw, unprofessional, unmedia trained persona that he may or may not be acceptant of.
You know, most people do like one of those pillars, and like I feel like we're one of the few channels that has all three. Like we understand what the platform wants, we understand what people want, we have good content on camera that's entertaining.
I love this. What Jimmy just said there is why he's a billionaire. This is the same phrase that Steve Jobs would use. Visionary language. Imagine a world where I believe that we are going to ...
We understand what the platform wants, we understand what people want.
There's a collectiveness and a communication of movement and momentum. It's not me, it's not my vision. Imagine we can do this. We are working toward this destination. We are moving in this direction. And those qualities of movement and momentum and collective vision are so incredibly attractive in a person. And it's what causes, by the way, the crazy engineering mad scientist types to want to tether their skill set to someone who has momentum. Being able to create that, especially in speech with words, by using visionary language, is why MrBeast is in the position that he is. Most people fall off on that journey and they lose sight of that larger picture that involves other people. And one thing I really admire about Jimmy, MrBeast the leader, is that he will reiterate the boring things multiple times, but he'll always package it in a way that wraps other people's visions inside of his own. And he'll talk about this, creating a vision big enough that other people can fit theirs inside of it.
I think in general, you should, my biggest thing has always been surround yourself with people who make you what you want to be. You know, obviously if you spent, you know, the next year, a couple hours a day with me and Speed, you would naturally be infinitely more successful.
If we talk about Jimmy's sentence structure, let's talk about his engineering of words. There are a lot of imperfections, lots of breaks in his sentences. Good sentence completion, ending sentence as well, would help him tremendously. It's one of those high leverage practices that will make a difference in any person's communication. Because confidence is created in communication when a person knows how to end their sentences well. And this usually means having better tonality, ending in a downward inflection, which creates authority in depth and confidence, and not ending sentences with too many hedge phrases or fillers like, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, that's my opinion. So yeah, these small changes would make Jimmy much more quotable. He would have more impact, and he would probably like how he sounded more, because when he ended his sentences with power, he would then continue that emotion and that strength into the next sentence. And it would give a strength to what he says that would be a lot more memorable. Final thoughts on MrBeast as a communicator. I call Jimmy the billionaire tornado of thought. His ideas are kind of everywhere. His sentences chase each other a little bit, but somehow it all works. I think if Jimmy were to be taught how to have better discipline with his information, work on shaping his voice more, being comfortable with silence more, and perhaps learning to tell stories better when he speaks, he would be bulletproof with his speaking, and he would have that aura and that presence of Steve Jobs or a Pavel Durov. If you're an entrepreneur or a creator and wanting to solve your communication challenges forever, so that you can show up with clarity, comfort, and brilliance every time you talk to people or your teams, I would ask that you schedule a time with our team to talk below, where we can help you understand where you're falling short in your communication. Or if you want to speak with me directly, there's links below. Hope this video helps.